Hi, my name is Marie Presley. Welcome to my capstone voiceover, Equity in Mathematics, an analysis of research in culturally responsive pedagogy and equitable math practices. Understanding how to effectively teach a culturally and linguistically diverse classroom can be a substantial task for a seasoned educator, let alone a pre-service teacher. Research shows that equitable practices can be achieved through investigating effective classroom practices to serve culturally and ethnically diverse student populations as well as English language learners. Achieving equity in mathematics classroom has been studied for decades, and the research surrounding the topics involved with our increasingly diverse classrooms. Many typical mathematics classrooms are comprised of students from multiple ethnicities as well as English language learners, and teachers must adapt their lesson plans to meet the needs of all students. However, as a pre-service teacher that will be teaching my first year of mathematics class within a year, I feel underprepared to tackle the challenges of my undoubtedly culturally and linguistically diverse first classroom. In this study, I'm going to research methods for pre-service teachers such as myself to be more suitably prepared to address the needs of a diverse classroom to promote equity in mathematics. Specifically, what culturally responsive pedagogy practices are vital for all teachers to implement to promote equity for culturally diversity and for English language learners. The student population in the United States is becoming more and more racially and culturally diverse. From 2001 to 2011, the proportion of public school enrollment composed of racial and ethnic minority students went from 40% to 48% and is projected to go 50 to 55% by 2013. Children of certain racial, ethnic, language, gender, ability, and socioeconomic background experience mathematics education differently, and many are disaffected by mathematics education experiences at all. A substantial amount of research in mathematics education seeks to document imbalances in achievement between middle-class whites and students who are Black, Latinx, First Nation, English language learners, and working class. In recent years, research has evolved from focusing on the achievement gap between certain races and cultures and how these relationships affect outcomes of traditionally marginalized students. The performance gap among students from various cultures, racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic background students and those designated with special needs have persisted despite the efforts to research equality. To close this existing gap, educators at all levels must work to achieve equity with respect to student learning outcomes. A steadfast dedication to this effort requires that all educators operate on the beliefs that all students can learn. Mathematics educators talk about all children having access to quality mathematics, yet we do not respect in the same way all children's experiences with respect to mathematics, particularly their experiences from communities and home environments. In many cases, equity in mathematics is an addendum or is tokenized in the education process. Adding a last-minute equity amendment to a document or sending an equity expert to attend a meeting is merely putting equity as a peripheral afterthought instead of pushing the issue of equity central to our profession. This approach puts equity as an addition to the process instead of taking the equity and looking at it from a holistic perspective. Equity in mathematics needs to be achieved together. This is an and or both, not an or. Equity needs to be center and forefront in all of our research. A recent instance of this division, rather than the inclusion, is of equity from the Prominent Educational Standards document. Common Core State Standards, the CCSM, the principal document pertaining to two explicit demographic groups, children with disabilities and English language learners, are listed as two separate documents. Neither application document is connected to the main CCSM document, nor are they readily visible to the official website. So instead of separating these documents, the CCSM, where they need to move is to be inclusive. So equity should not be or, it should be both. This purposeful separation from the growing inclusion in equity-based mathematics educational research raises serious questions about the intent and scope of such policy documents to positively affect mathematics learning experience of all children. Who decides what counts as mathematics and what mathematics students should learn? Why does algebra, for example, have an aura of prestige? Algebra is still being used as a sieve into further mathematics at the high school and college level. The 2008 National Council of Teachers of Math (NCTM) position statement on equity calls for students to have access and engage in challenging, rigorous, and meaningful mathematical experiences, and to build their relations with mathematics that is positive and grounded in their own cultural roots and history. What we choose as mathematics is a political act. Asset-based practices in mathematics education are a mindful way to move away from insufficiency perspectives that view students, parents, and communities as lacking in various aspects that enable them to be ready for higher level mathematics. An asset-based approach is grounded in the belief that students, families, and communities' way of knowing, including their language and culture, serves as an intellectual resource and contributes greatly to the teaching and learning of high-quality mathematics. Teachers Teachers' exchanges with students, which are socially and therefore culturally meaningful, have great impact on students' identity, development, and believed ability to do math. So now we're going to look at effective strategies, classroom strategies for all students. In the mathematics classroom, teacher, student, student to student, and all of their exchanges frame individual realisms. Constructions of mathematical knowledge and an individual's relationship to mathematics are very personal and are influenced greatly by the individual's experience with mathematics, many of which have to be fostered by the teacher. Data from multiple peer-reviewed research articles suggest that relationships and trust in classroom are not only foundational of culturally responsive mathematics teaching, but also mediate knowledge and communication in the math classroom. These relationships include fundamental connection between the student and the teacher, but also go beyond the math classroom. The opposite is true with regards to the lack of attention to relationship development. For example, if a teacher is not acquiring knowledge about student and is not communicating in a culturally associated ways, relationships are limited and trust is not developed. In many cases, a lack of trust grows between the teacher and the student. This suggests that if cultural constructs are not made in the mathematical classroom and students may not be able to access mathematical comprehension, that student learning will be hindered. It has been shown that teachers frequently facilitate student perceptions and success in mathematics. For example, successful teachers of African American students have been studied over time and have provided great insight. Such studies show that these passionate teachers uphold high expectations of students, nurturing not only essential skills and understanding, but also vital perspectives and understanding among culturally diverse students. Teachers, driven by their deep-seated beliefs that all students can learn and be highly successful, effective teachers of underserved students across populations are able to foster students' cultural identities and capitalize on the students' funds of knowledge. Data show that relationships and trust between teachers and students are not only instrumental um, category of the culturally responsive mathematics teaching, but also enable knowledge and communication in the mathematics classroom. This visual is from Emily Bonner. In this, she does a great job of explaining or giving a visual about how relationships and trust are central to the classroom. And if you notice on the screen, power is a mediator of knowledge and communication. So if a teacher does not share the power in the power in the classroom, communication is not built. And it is likewise for power. If power is not shared in the classroom, knowledge is not maximized, and the communication is hindered. Mathematics present a particularly elusive challenge for our English language learner. Many mathematics teachers struggle with ways of creating a classroom environment that supports ELLs, English language learners, both socially and academically. Linguistic minorities in the United States too often sit quietly in the math classroom without engaging in classroom discussions. They do not feel comfortable with these opportunities to experiment with language, particularly in the specialized language of mathematics. So how do we support participation of ELLs in the mathematics classroom? Research-based strategies are key to supporting ELLs' mathematical proficiency. Stated below, these research strategies have shown to effectively support ELLs in the classroom. So what are these effective strategies? Number one, the teacher needs to connect mathematics with students' life experiences and existing knowledges. That goes back to understanding that the students' funds of knowledge are imperative to mathematical learning. Create a classroom environment that is rich in language and mathematical content. As English language learners, we will not only be mathematics teachers, but we also have to serve as language teachers to support these students as they learn language, the mathematical language. Number three, emphasize meaning and the multiple meanings of words. Students may need to communicate meaningfully by gestures, drawing, or their first language while they develop command of the English language and mathematics. So we need to support them wherever they are and meet them in their place of learning. Of course, their language will develop over time, but until that point, we need to support them in communicating with any means necessary in the math classroom. Use visual support such as concrete objects, videos, illustrations, and gestures in the classroom for conversation. This will enable them to be able to communicate their mathematical ideas. Connect language with mathematical representation. So pictures, tables, graphs, all visuals are very important in the ELL classroom. Write essential ideas, concepts, representations, and words on the boards without erasing so that the student can refer to them throughout the lesson. This is also very important during word problems because ELLs have specifically a challenging time with understanding language and word problems. Discuss examples of students' mathematical writing and provide opportunity to revise them. So often, English language learners have a hard time expressing their knowledge, mathematical knowledge in writing. So giving them this opportunity will greatly advance their mathematical knowledge, but also reviewing it with them and giving them the chance to revise their mathematical thinking and writing will greatly enhance the student's knowledge. Some effective culturally responsive teaching practices, and these are just visuals to add for the classroom of ELLs. Cognate charts is over here on the right. Many ELLs have come from languages that have cognate words that sound very similar. So having these charts in the classroom, or at least printing them out for ELL students, can really help them to understand when a word is spoken in English, that many of these words also sound the same in other languages, and pointing that out to students. Word walls have shown to be extremely effective in ELL classrooms. This middle chart shows basically a word wall. For example, this would be a word wall for understanding variable algebra, and having these words available for the ELL students to reference back once the unit is being reviewed in class will be very, very important. So, for example, if a ELL doesn't remember what coefficient stands for, well, having this diagram, showing what coefficient is, so they can quickly refer to that and not become lost in the classroom while the teacher is talking, is really important. And then just having mathematical vocabulary less are important. For example, subtraction is something that most ELLs might recognize, but we refer to subtraction in so many different ways. We use difference, less than, minus, take away, fewer than, leftover, exceed. So there are different ways that in different nuances that we use for a word that it'll be effective to have those available, those visuals available for the ELL students so they understand different language nuances that will be used in the math classroom. And that is my presentation.